Hello and welcome back to Woolen Works. Today we're going to be learning all of your basic crochet stitches. So we'll cover the chain, single, double, half double and treble crochet stitch. I'll be showing you how many stitches to put into your turning chain and of course explaining what is a turning chain. And then we'll go over each stitch nice and slow so you can follow along with me. This video is perfect for beginners because you can pause the video and come back to it later as all of your stitches are in the one spot. If you haven't already, go and watch my slip knot tutorial as we'll be using that today. Once you've watched that, meet me back here and let's learn how to crochet. So to become a master of crochet, all you need today is a ball of yarn and a crochet hook. I have the full set of the Clover or More crochet hooks here, but I will just be using the 3.5mm today. The ergonomic design and grip means you don't get a sore hand, so I highly recommend these for if you're a beginner. I'll put a link below if you'd like to grab one for yourself. And that is all you will need. To make the chain stitch, you want to start with a slip knot, insert your hook and pull it tight. Now we don't want it too tight because this first row of chain stitch that we're about to do is often referred to as your foundation chain. And if you do it too tight, it'll make inserting your hook under those stitches a bit difficult later on. So we always try to do our foundation chain a little looser than what we would do our normal stitches. To hold your yarn, you can wrap it around your pinky, around your fourth finger. Some people wrap it around their pointer. It really just depends what your preference is. So, chain stitch. This one is super easy, but it's used everywhere, so it's great to know. All you need to do is wrap the yarn from the back to the front of your hook. So I'll do that again, wrap the yarn around the back to the front of your hook and then simply pull that wrapped yarn through your slip knot that was on your hook. So let's do that again. We wrap the yarn from the back to the front of our hook and pull through. And again, wrap from the back to the front and pull through. So you can see now we have three V-like stitches here, and they are our chain stitches. The one on our loop, you'll often hear people say to ignore it, skip it, pretend it's not there. And I like to think that the reason that is because if I pull this, it gets bigger, it moves, it's annoying, whereas these ones, you pull and move them, they're always going to stay in this shape. So these are complete stitches and this one's just a loop, which is why we don't count it. So let's do a few more chains. We wrap from the back to the front and pull through. If you're finding your chain is a bit tight and you want to make it looser, all you need to do is pull up some yarn before you wrap and pull through, and you'll see that made a much bigger loop than my previous ones. Then you just continue in this manner for as many stitches as it says to do on your pattern or project. This is often written as CH, so it'll say CH10 and that would mean chain 10. And to count your stitches, you just count how many V's you've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say it said chain 10. We've got 9 and 10. And there you have a chain of 10. So now that we've learned how to do our chain stitch, I can explain what a turning chain is. So when we crochet back and forth like this. And each stitch that we do has a different height. So for example, a single crochet stitch might be this high, but a double crochet might be twice as tall. And we don't want to start our next row and kind of gradually increase to the right height until our crochet stitches are flat. We want to make sure as soon as we start that next row, we're going to have a nice even line all the way across that's the same height. So to do that, we need to build the height of our stitches at the start, and we do that by creating what's called a turning chain. And it's quite simply some extra chain stitches at an end of a row, which will build you up so then you can work across. And that's all there is to it. I've made a little guideline document which I'll put up next, and you can screenshot it and keep it for later. And this just tells you how many chain stitches should be in your turning chain depending on what crochet stitch you're doing. So for example, a single crochet stitch, you should be chaining 1. A double crochet, you should be chaining 3, etc. So that's all in the document, and this will differ depending on what pattern you're doing. So sometimes the patterns will say how many to chain because it differs depending on the wool that you're using or the crochet hook or the style that they're doing the pattern in. But if it doesn't state what to do, this is what you can use. So make sure you screenshot this for later. One last thing we need to know before we begin our stitches is where to insert our hook. So for the purpose of today's video, I'm going to be inserting under both loops of our chain stitch. So if this is our chain stitch here, we're going to insert under both loops of that chain stitch. This is what's most commonly done and used, so that's why I'll be showing you this today. Sometimes they may say insert only into the back loop of the chain stitch, and that is all of the loops that are on this edge furthest from yourself. So for example, if it said insert into the back loop, I'd be going in here. And sometimes it might even say into the back of the stitch or the bottom of the stitch, and that is where you flip it over and see these ridges here. You insert under those instead. So for example, you'd insert under this loop here. And that's a really handy way to get a neat edge on your projects, but I'll be showing that in another video. So for today, we'll be inserting under both loops of your chain stitches. Like so. Now that we know what a turning chain is and where to insert our hook, we can start learning our stitches. So for the single crochet stitch, you'll see on that document it says we always ignore the one on our hook, skip the first stitch and work into the second chain from our hook. So we insert our crochet hook under both loops of that chain, and now we've got one loop and one chain on our hook. I'll show that again. So we skip this first chain here and we're working into the second chain from our hook, and we insert under both loops. So we've got our stitch, our chain stitch, and then what we do is we wrap the yarn again from the back to the front of the hook, and we pull that yarn through the chain stitch. We then wrap again from back to front of the hook and pull through both loops. And that is your first single crochet stitch. From then on, we don't need to skip a chain, we just work into the next one. So we've worked into this one here, we go into the second one. So we insert our hook under both loops of the chain stitch. We then wrap the yarn from the back to the front of our hook and pull that wrapped yarn through our chain stitch. So you now have two loops on your hook, then wrap the yarn again from back to front and pull through both loops. And again, insert your hook under both loops of the chain stitch, wrap the yarn around the back to the front of your hook, grab that wrapped yarn and pull it up through the chain stitch, wrap the yarn from back to front and pull through both loops that were on your hook. You'll see we've got some chain stitches there, some single crochet, sorry, and we'll keep doing that all the way to the end. And once we get to the last chain, again, insert under both loops, wrap the yarn around the back to the front of your hook and pull up that yarn through the chain stitch, wrap your yarn from back to front and pull through both loops that were on your hook. Now you've got a row of single crochet stitches. For our turning chain, it says 2 chain 1. So we chain 1 and then we simply turn our work to the other side and we're ready to work back. So we've just chained 1, which is this extra stitch here, sorry. We ignore the one on our hook, so we insert under both loops here. So ignore this, skip 1 and we work into here, which is actually the top of the single crochet stitch from the last row. So we insert our hook under both loops, wrap the yarn and pull up, wrap and pull through the 2 loops on our hook, and you continue like that into the end. For the double crochet stitch, once again we're going to be working with a chain of 10, and our turning chain this time has 3 stitches, which means we're going to be working in the 4th chain stitch from our hook. The difference with the double crochet stitch is that we actually wrap the yarn before we insert our hook. So we wrap the yarn from back to front, and then we insert into the 4th chain from our hook under both loops. So you should now have 2 loops on your hook plus the chain stitch. I'll show that again. So we wrap the yarn from the back to the front of our hook. We then insert into the 4th chain from our hook under both loops, and we now have 2 loops on our hook plus a chain stitch. We're then once again going to wrap the yarn from back to front and pull up a loop through the chain stitch. So now you should have 1, 2, 3 loops on your hook. Then going to wrap the yarn from back to front over the hook and pull that yarn through 2 of the loops that are on our hook, which will leave us with another 2 loops still. We then wrap the yarn once again from back to front and pull through both loops. Do that again. So we wrap the yarn from back to front, then insert under both loops of our chain stitch. You'll now have 2 loops plus a chain stitch on your hook. Then wrap again from back to front and pull up a loop through your chain stitch. You should now have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn, pull through 2 loops, which will leave you with another 2 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn and pull through the remaining loops. And there you have some double crochet stitches. You can see they're a bit taller, which leaves these gaps between your stitches. Let's do this one again. So we wrap the yarn from back to front, insert under both loops of our next chain stitch, wrap the yarn and pull up a loop through that chain stitch. So we now have 3 loops on our hook. Wrap the yarn and pull through 2 loops on our hook. Wrap and pull through 2 loops. I'll do that to the end. And for the last one on our hook, we yarn over, insert under both loops of that last chain stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop through that chain, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we have a row of double crochet stitches. To turn, our turning chain has 3 chains, so we do 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we turn our work. This means when we skip our 3 stitches and work into the 4th chain from our hook, we'll actually be working into the top of the last double crochet stitch we did from the previous row. So we yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 3 loops on our hook now. Yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's the double crochet stitch. For the half double crochet stitch, once again I'm starting with a chain of 10. The half double crochet stitch, we have a chain of 2, so we'll be working into the 3rd chain from our hook. For the half double crochet, once again we wrap the yarn from back to front. Show that again. So we wrap the yarn from the back to the front, and then we insert our hook under both loops of that 3rd chain from our hook. So now we should have 2 loops on our hook plus a chain stitch. But then yarn over and pull up a loop through that chain stitch. So now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So it starts very similar to the double crochet stitch. So wrap the yarn from back to the front of your hook, Then insert your hook under both loops of the next chain stitch. You now have 2 loops on your hook plus a chain stitch. Then yarn over and pull up a loop through the chain, so you end up with 3 loops on your hook. And then we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So you can see there's our half double crochet stitches. Wrap the yarn from the back to the front of the hook. Insert your hook under both loops of the next chain stitch. Wrap the yarn from back to front and pull up a loop through your chain. Wrap and pull through all 3 loops. I'll continue that to the end of the row. And for the last chain, we wrap the yarn from the back to the front of our hook. Insert your hook under both loops of the last chain stitch. So you now have 2 loops plus a chain on your hook. Wrap the yarn from back to front and pull up a loop through that chain stitch. So you now have 3 loops on your hook. Then wrap the yarn and pull through all 3 loops. So now we have a row of half double crochet stitches. To turn, you need to chain 2, chain 1, chain 2, and turn your work. Now we'll be working in the top chain from our last half double crochet stitch that we did in the last row. So we skip 2 and work into the 3rd chain, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop through that chain, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that is the half double crochet stitch. For the treble crochet stitch, again I'm starting with a chain of 10, and the treble crochet stitch has a turning chain of 4, so we'll actually be working in the 5th chain from our hook. So we're going to wrap the yarn this time from back to front, not once but twice. So I'll show that again. So we wrap the yarn back to front and then back to front. We then go into the 5th chain from our hook, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Insert under both loops of that chain, so now you have 3 loops plus a chain stitch on your hook. Then wrap the yarn from back to front and pull up a loop through that chain stitch. So now you'll have 4 loops on your hook. Then wrap the yarn back to front and pull through 2 of those loops. 1, 2. And wrap the yarn again and pull through 2 loops. 1, 2. So now you should have 2 loops on your hook, and you wrap the yarn for a 3rd time and pull through both loops on your hook. As you can see, this stitch is much taller, which means we get a lot bigger gaps. So wrap the yarn back to the front, back to the front, insert into the next chain stitch under both loops. So now we've got 3 loops and a chain stitch on our hook. Then wrap the yarn back to front and pull up a loop through that chain stitch, which gives us 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Next one, wrap the yarn from back to front, back to front. Insert your hook under both loops of the next chain stitch. So we have 3 loops and a chain stitch. We wrap the yarn from the back to front of the hook and pull up a loop through the chain stitch, which gives us 4 loops on our hook. Then wrap the yarn from back to front and pull through 2 of the loops on our hook, which leaves us with 3. Then wrap the yarn again, pull through 2 loops, which leaves us with 2 loops on our hook. And then we wrap the yarn from back to front and pull through the last 2 loops on our hook. I'll do that to the end. and the last chain. So we wrap the yarn back to front, insert under both loops of that chain stitch. So we have 3 loops in a chain, wrap the yarn from back to front and pull up a loop through that chain stitch. So we now have 4 loops, wrap the yarn from back to front and pull through 2 of the loops. So now we're left with 3. Wrap the yarn from back to front, pull through 2 loops, and once again wrap the yarn from back to front and pull through 2 loops. And that will give you your first row of treble crochet stitch. For the turning chain, we have a chain of 4, so we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and then turn our work. Now when we work in the 5th chain from our hook, we'll be working in the top of our last treble crochet stitch. So we wrap the yarn once, twice, and then work into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th chain from our hook. Insert under both loops, wrap the yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is the treble crochet stitch. Now that you know all of your main crochet stitches, you should be able to tackle just about any pattern or project that you like. If you're working on something and get a little bit stuck or confused, don't worry, just let me know in the comments down below and I'll see if I can give you a hand. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my future tutorials. If you want to see what I'm currently working on, head over to @woolenworks on Instagram or Facebook as I share everything I'm currently doing on there. Once again, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it and I hope you have a fantastic day. And of course, happy crocheting!